Broadcasting from the Business RadioX studio in Alpharetta, it's time for Profit Sense with Bill McDermott.
Good morning. Welcome to Profit Sense. This podcast dives into the stories behind some of Atlanta's successful businesses and business owners and the professionals that advise them. We help local business leaders get the word out about the important work they're doing to serve their market, their community, and their profession. I'm your host, Bill McDermott, and this show is presented by the Profitability Coach. When business owners want to increase their profitability, they often don't have the expertise to know where to start or what to do. I leverage my knowledge and relationships from 32 years as a banker to identify the hurdles getting in the way and create a plan to deliver profitability they never thought possible. We have three great guests on the show today. First, Diana Murphy with Diana Murphy Coaching. Diana, welcome to Profit Sense.
Great to be here.
And we also have Scott Autry and Greg Herring with Darnel, Inc. Guys, welcome to Profit Sense. So glad you're here this morning.
Glad to be with you. Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So Diana, let me start with you. You know, you and I have talked that your journey to become a coach really didn't make sense at all. I wonder if you could explain for our listening audience why that was the case.
Well, I found coaching and opening a business kind of found me, but in a phase of life where most people were empty nesting and figuring out the what next was more about retiring or living near their kids or those types of steps. And, you know, as my kids left home, I had a more an epiphany, kind of my own transformation where I realized I really did want to start a thriving coaching practice, and not just as a hobby, which I had to really help a few people understand, but as a true profitable, which I know you love that word, but as a profitable, great, healthy business.
Yeah, and I also know there was a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit that has always been in you, but seems like it had been pent up for a long time. Can you elaborate on that? Maybe share a little story?
What's really fun is when I was really digging into as a coach and growing into that identity as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, I looked back after a coach asked me that question. It's like, where did you see this in yourself before? And I realized when I was 5 years old, I'll date myself because there was no internet yet. I found a magazine where it was advertising an ability to open your own business and sell greeting cards. And my mom helped me do it because of course she had to send the letter or whatever, but I started selling greeting cards and, you know, doing performances when I always was in charge of them and gathered people. And it's really interesting. That's a lot of what I love to do in my business today is gather groups of people. We might call them executive roundtables now, but it's very fascinating that you can see these roots in your own personality that I kind of I had ignored during a lot of seasons in my life.
So we're talking with Diana Murphy, with Diana Murphy Coaching. Diana helps business owners who've reached a level of success where their businesses are happening to them. And she helps them to reduce stress and worry, stop overworking so that they can stay in growth. And Diana, I know you've really found great satisfaction in business owners find their zone of genius. So talk a little bit about that zone of genius and how that came about.
So I had a wonderful season as COVID hit. I just knew in my heart of hearts that I wanted to be there for these business owners that were having all sorts of different, based on the industry, very different experiences. And what I realized is that I deal with a lot of stress reduction and reducing overwhelm, all that type of mindset. I realized that most of my friends, colleagues were getting very overwhelmed by the pandemic shutdown. And so I offered a course called How to Maintain Your Zone of Genius during, a crisis. So we started in the crisis mode. I had 3 versions of it. We had to retitle it for every phase of the pandemic. But what I realized in just going out there and supporting owners right where they were is that we really are very aware as owners of that zone of genius in our business. And I knew if I could help them stay in that space, even if they were really stressed out, if they were learning to be homeschool parents, even if they were, like all the things that were asked of us during the pandemic, I knew that great good would happen in their businesses. And so that is why the zone of genius is so important to me. It's been a fond workshop. I've renamed my workshops, but that is where that zone of genius came. And I've realized that the owners that want to grow, Bill, and want to be profitable, if they don't honor their zone of expertise and protect it, that is what bottlenecks their growth. And so it's been a fun theme to kind of entertain and help my owners, my clients, to look at.
Yeah. And so when you and I have talked about that in the past, I have found that to be so true in my business. So I tend to be, my zone of genius really is a little bit more big picture.
Mm-hmm.
I find that details I really struggle with. I can handle details,
yeah,
but I don't really consider details my zone of genius. So I'm just curious, how do you help business owners find that zone of genius? And is there a survey that they take? Is it a questionnaire? Do you discover it through just interacting with them?
Yeah,
how does that happen?
Yeah, so it was actually, I thought in the Zone of Genius workshops, I was going to be helping them to identify it. I think every owner, when asked the question, when do you know you're in your zone of genius? And helping them to be more and more aware of it. So in conversations, I'd be asking owners, when do things flow? When do you get an incredibly high amount of work done? When do you just love what you're doing? And then protecting that is so key in your business. So like the detail-oriented person, like that's their zone of genius. They need to be working for the visionaries like you and I are that see big picture. And so very quickly, like even for the audience today, when are you in that space where you really are in flow? Like you don't care how long you work, you're enjoying what you're doing. And most times that is a zone as an owner. That is the key thing that we really solve for our clients. Whatever that zone is usually the reason we have a successful business. And it is a way that we give really high value to our customers. So it's important for us to know what it is, but more often to protect it.
Yeah. And I have found for me, kind of using the whole idea of tailwinds that really help us go faster versus headwinds, things that really slow us down.
Yeah.
I think I'm in my zone of genius when I'm feeling like everything is tailwinds, no headwinds.
Yes. Yeah. Growth can be fast. Productivity is very, very high. It's not distracted space. It's usually a very centered and great mental space. And so that zone is something we're very aware of. But as we become business owners and grow more, we let that part of our work, or we can let that get eroded. And that is what usually causes trouble with our growth.
Diana Murphy's been in business as a coach for over 7 years now. And in talking with Diana Murphy Coaching is a high-touch personal coaching practice designed to support business owners in all of the phases of ownership. Diana, I'm going to tell you a story that I think really identifies some common themes in business owners, and I'm going to call it overwork.
Yes.
And so round one of PPP, we're in the middle of COVID. I found myself helping my business owner clients navigate the aspects of PPP round one. It was all done in a very compressed time frame. People were afraid of running out of money. And I found myself putting in 12, 14-hour days.
Yeah.
I reached a point after about 2 weeks, I've never really experienced burnout, but I think that might have been the closest I had ever come. So you have mentioned to me that you found some common themes in your work, and that overwork, just like what I explained to you in my PPP, is a go-to for business owners, and the outcome is stress and burnout. And I feel like in my experience in PPP, I was the beta for myself and really discovered that. Could you elaborate on that a little bit and maybe talk about why most business owners have a go-to, which is what you call overwork?
Yeah, I think if you're a founding owner, which many of the people I work with are, and there's so many amazing small businesses, whether you're even franchised or not, when you are the founder of it, it's normal to be doing more and working more hours as you do that bootstrappy kind of early phase. But what happens is we don't know when to turn that off. And so we're used to being the catch-all for our businesses. And we're used to, like, if there's a problem, it's like, oh, I might as well handle it. And many times stress, that's why the zone of genius was so fun, because when we are in that zone of genius, we realize that's not helpful. But when we're letting the business kind of happen to us, we're taking care of all the pieces. We have more clients than we thought were possible. We get into that place where it feels like it's quicker and more efficient to do it ourselves, but it's the biggest lie ever. And it feels like it's good to give up the workouts in the morning or the time with our family at dinner because the work is, the business is demanding that of us. But all it ends up doing is stealing from the business, the genius, the vision, the great decision making. And that's where burnout, I think, can be so dangerous for a small business owner. They are not operating at their best. So their decision making gets diluted. When we always, I'll just do that. I'll work that problem through instead of thinking that problem through and getting the right support. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And so I'm just curious for our listening audience, if you had found me and coached me right after I went through that PPP experience, because you've really talked about overwork really kills ourselves and our genius.
Yeah.
How would you have helped coach me out of that stress and that burnout that I had experienced during that time?
I love using a tool which I call the self-coaching model. And in that self-coaching model, every circumstance, our circumstances do not, COVID did not stress us out. It was all of our thoughts about COVID that stressed us out, and our fear and all that high volume of thinking. And so, Bill, for you in that, I imagine that there was a particular thought, like, I'll just keep doing this. Man, people need me. There's thoughts that you had that created the action line that said, oh, I'll just keep doing the work instead of stepping back and going, what's another way to manage it? So for each of us, when we have a thought, well, I'll just do it myself, or it'll just be for a week or two, or I must serve everybody, or I must help everybody, then those thoughts create an emotional urgency that makes us take the action of always doing it in working hours. And so that's how I would have coached you. I would have dug down into what were you thinking? They're all noble thoughts. Most of our thoughts around is like, oh, maybe it's not so noble to think that I'm the only one that can do this. But I think solo business owners especially are kind of noble that it's like, oh, I'm more than willing to work and take care of this. And therefore the action line usually is, oh, I'll just work the extra hour. But we can see the effects of that over a long period of time. There are seasons where overworking is just part of it. Like, right. I never judge my clients for overwork seasons. I don't, tell my clients that they need to stop work at 5 if that just isn't realistic. But we look at the thoughts, the feelings, and the reactions that are going on for them mindset wise that might have worked when they were building the business, might work for a short term, but to be careful to not apply those in a long-term way. That's where burnout happens.
Yeah. And I would say on top of that, so I'm an Enneagram 3, And
Yes.
the Enneagram 3 is the achiever.
Yes.
And so the achiever has a point to prove, and the achiever thinks he or she can do anything and everything.
We sure do. And I'm a 3 too. Like, I'm not surprised. We're both 3s. And I do think that what happens with owners is that that achievement mindset, even if they're not a 3, but the achievement mindset of a business owner has a moving bar. And it's like, if I just work this hard, then I'm going to get this. And they feel that satisfaction of, being $1 million company, or being, whatever the type of revenue space is. And then it's like, but that's never enough. And the bar keeps moving and moving and moving. So I work with a lot of very high achiever people that have a huge capacity. But if they don't protect their own mental well-being and manage their mindset to remember that they're not yes, you can do, just because you can do all those things doesn't mean that you should be. It's fascinating, but the high achiever that is never not willing to work. I think that's what makes us amazing. We are, we can handle a very big season of growth. And like when, I started my podcast and I'd started a new group coaching program and blank, blank, blank. Well, I'm able to do all that. But then I remembered that, I actually should be resting every once in a while and taking time off with my family, and realize that's not sustainable to do new every month.
Absolutely. So we're talking this morning with Diana Murphy of Diana Murphy Coaching. Diana has unique programs and one-on-one coaching available for the important transitions, early owner growth, sustainable growth for the solo owner, and the regret-proof sale. And I want to get back to, if overwork is the disease, not that it's a disease, but it's a condition, an unhealthy condition, then the antidote is really carving out or creating space to protect our genius. And so I want you to talk a little bit about how we carve out and create that space to protect our genius.
I do think, I'm really careful to not have any rules. So I don't want the audience to think that, because I'm really careful when I start helping owners to not be overworking, is just helping them realize it's not sustainable. And none of us started businesses to ignore our families and ignore our own well-being. And again, that's not a sustainable business model. And so how I begin working with owners that are in that space is really seeing places where they almost radically, they'll tell me what they really want. I really want to be growing my revenue at this level, but I still want to be able to take a vacation with my family. Or it's the lawyer that really does want to have a flex Friday, but they're afraid to do so. And so for owners, it's radical to take really good care of their own well-being. And so it might be, really setting up your lifestyle, understanding your own rhythm. I have clients that don't start with clients until 10:30 because they have such a powerful morning routine and it really works. Now they work till 8 with a break with dinner. There's no right or wrong. But I think for owners that are listening today, what are some things you're craving that you're not giving yourself permission to do? Start giving yourself permission to do those things in small bites and set your business up support-wise. If you need to get some support for the detail management, like Bill and I should be hiring a lot of people to do detail work. That slows us down, right? I don't have to spend all day Friday doing invoices and setting up emails. My VA does that. When I take a flex Friday or take a vacation that I just took, my business will be on my mind most of the time, but that my zone of genius is working on it. And then I can hit the ground running and work really hard. So I really recommend owners own their rhythm. When do you really like to do your work? Do it then, but take a radical day off, take a radical vacation. It is the overachiever thinks they should be working 50 hours a week. So I think it's just honoring some of those cravings and implement them, almost forcing yourself to do it. And then once you see the benefits of it, you will learn learn some ways to really integrate that into your routine. Does that answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I wanted to point out too, I know business owners, especially solopreneurs, try to be all things to all people.
Yes.
And delegation that you mentioned just a moment ago can really play an important role in that, primarily because someone else has the zone of genius that you may not be strong in. Can you
Yes.
elaborate on that a little bit as well?
Yeah. And I think it's the identity that, the identity of a founding owner has to do all things, at least for a short period of time, unless you have a lot of capital and we're smart enough to hire Bill early to get cash in their business, which I actually would recommend. But doing, really that mindset, that bootstrapping mindset is really all that's wrong, right? That's not working. And so I think it's stepping back and stepping in more as a leader in your own business and step into being the owner, not the employee of your own business. So that's where the mind shift happens, is taking more of a leader role and then really debunking the lie that I can do it better myself. No, there are people that are so specialized at social media, so specialized at supporting people like ourselves that are visionaries, that, then it is that time to slow down and see where you can plug in that help. But it is a mindset shift, because even in delegating, if we have any thoughts like, oh, I better do it myself, or they won't do a good job, or they might make an error and it'll hurt my company, they need to get clean on those thoughts, or they won't be delegating as freely as they can, even if they have a team. So that's where the mindset part of it really does come into it. We can have a full staff and not be employing them fully if our mindset is getting in the way. It's still in that bootstrap phase and needs to become more of a leader, and really own that you have a team and take the leadership role in that business.
That is so critical. And so, Diana, in closing, we're probably going to have some listeners who either are looking for a coach, or maybe what you have said during our conversation today really resonated with them and they want to seek you out. What's the best way for someone to find you?
So I live on LinkedIn. So link with me on LinkedIn. I'm just Diana Murphy. I have a website, dianamurphycoaching.com, but I run a high touch practice. If you have any questions whatsoever on what I've offered today, just email me, Diana@dianamurphycoaching.com. And Bill, I do have a podcast. It's a great way to understand if you like working, really get the mindset piece of it ahead of time. I offer a Monday morning podcast, comes out early for you business owners to start your week right. And it is called Successful Mindset for the Business Owner. And that's a place where I just give that gift of one problem to solve in your business that week, one focus, and a short 10-minute podcast where owners can go to get what they need mindset wise. And if they'd like more, they should be in touch with me. I've got something for everyone. The new owner, the established owner is my bread and butter. My one-on-one coaching is with the established owner, but I am also doing some exit work with regret proofing the sale with owners that are wanting to sell.
Well, you have such high energy. You have a great practice and something for everyone. What a great way to pay it forward in the podcast. So it has been a delight to chat with you this morning, and thanks again for coming on the show.
No, I really have loved it. And I think if just as one takeaway, if everyone could realize that profitability and high revenue growth will always come from that healthy owner, from that really strong and cared for owner, when they're in their zone and they're not overworking, and there is a way out of it for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure. Thank you, Bill.
And now we're going to talk with Greg Herring and Scott Autry with Darnel Incorporated. Greg and Scott, welcome again. So glad that you came on the show.
Glad to be here, Bill. Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks, Bill.
I just want to start, Greg, I'll start with you. Can you share a little bit about what Darnel does? Who are your customers and how you differentiate yourself from your competitors?
Sure. Thanks. Good question. Yeah, Bill, Darnel is a company that was started back in 1974. And Darnel is really what we pride ourselves on is a relationship-driven financial restitution service company that understands the delicate balance between accounts receivable and accounts lending and also lending a hand to our banking clients. That's a large focus of what our company does is that help banks manage those accounts that are either delinquent or past due or charged off, that type of thing. Darnel helps their banking clients reduce charge-offs, protect customer relationships, and reduces the heavy HR costs that are sometimes associated with managing that type of or that piece of their house, so to speak. And again, as I've mentioned, we've been doing that for about 47 years. We also have some space that we started our business on in the medical arena, but one of our biggest focus in the last, I'd say, 10 years has been in the banking world.
Yeah, Bill, and as far as this is Scott, as how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors, I do feel like in a world of automation, we differentiate ourselves from our competitors because we offer that thing that we all crave, and we'll continue to offer it, and that's human connection. I think if 2020 didn't give us some sort of indication as to the net return of social media and AI, I'm not sure what will. We all craved human connection.
That's right.
After the 2020 pandemic. So we thrive in restoring broken financial relationships. So we try to specialize in making those human connections. And that's one of the most complex situations we can find ourselves in. So I feel like that's how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And those personal relationships are so important, Scott. So, Greg, I want to ask you a question and then Scott, a follow-up question right after this.
Sure.
Greg, you and Scott recently had a management transition where Scott is transitioning into the CEO role, but I want to ask you to take a look back, and for our listening audience, what are one or two things that you've learned over 25 to 30 years as an entrepreneur?
Great question. I think the number one thing I would say there to those that are thinking about launching out into businesses, or maybe they're looking at their business and looking at their model and thinking about branching into new services or new product lines, is number one, just don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to try new things and test new products. I know from when we started this company, Darnel was started as a family company. My father started it in 1974. And, we have migrated into a lot of different things over those 47 years being in business. But we're not the same company today that we were 47 years ago. And I think that's because it was kind of I was brought up to not be afraid to take a chance. And I remember many times in those in the last my experience here of 25 or 30 years serving in this business that things changed. Clients challenged us to take on new products. Clients challenged us to do new things. And even in the last, I'd say 10 to 15 years, when me and Scott migrated a large part of our business to the banking world to help them manage their past dues, for lack of a better word, and their charge-offs. That was a new product for us that nobody was doing. And so I think the number one thing is just don't be afraid to try. So sometimes we get in our zone or we get in our lane and we're kind of scared to turn the blinkers on, for lack of a better word. But sometimes you have to try new things. And I think the second part of that is don't be afraid to launch out into deep waters. One thing I've learned too, sometimes when you're growing a business and it takes off and things are going well, and sometimes you kind of want to put it on autopilot. but I think it's very important that we, as business owners, to not be afraid to launch out a little bit deeper. I like to use the analogy, that's where the big fish are. It's easier to sit on the shorelines and kind of be comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're making a good living. I like some of the things that Diane said about, managing your time and your family and your resources and the things you do. It's extremely important. And I've experienced a lot of things that she talked about in the first part of the show, about striking that fine balance. But in the same token, don't be afraid to jump out there in deep waters where the big fish are at.
And Scott, to you, for our new CEOs that could be listening, maybe what are one or two things as you have taken over as CEO recently that are really important to you as you embark on your CEO journey?
Yeah, thanks for the question. The first thing that comes to mind for me was actually a speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave. I don't know if your listeners know who that is. It's a former U.S. president, obviously. He gave a speech a little over 100 years ago, and the most famous part of that speech was entitled "The Man in the Arena." And Roosevelt was basically encapsulating what I feel is essential for a new CEO in overcoming new challenges. He dismantled the idea in this speech about success and brilliance being the final measure of a man. At the end of the day, he was big on things like self-mastery, self-control, common sense, individual responsibility. But he also mixed that with the courage to try. And so to boil that down, in the context of that speech is where he gave that it's not the critic who counts. So many times we go into a new thing or we face new challenges, and the first thing we think about is what everyone else is going to think about me. Am I going to fail? Am I going to be an embarrassment to my peers? And Roosevelt basically gave an impassioned speech about it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man on the sidelines who's pointing the finger who can say the man in the arena should have done it differently. And so that comes to mind, that you have to ignore the critics. Those people don't count in the equation. And so I'd encourage your listeners to go read his speech. It's entitled Citizenship in a Republic. It's been a pretty formative speech in my life. But yeah, it's not the critic who counts. The second thing I would say is surround yourself with positive people. You have to have people who are going to encourage you, who are going to stand behind you, who are going to give you wisdom and counsel and guidance. If you surround yourself with too many naysayers, obviously that's going to feed into how you run your business. So don't count the critic and surround yourself with positive people.
Yeah, those are such great points. We're talking to Scott Autry and Greg Herring of Darnel Incorporated. Scott brings over 18 years experience to the financial services industry. He has a background in information technology, business administration, and process workflow. And Greg brings over 25 years experience to the financial services industry. He has extensive experience in banking, property management, and real estate investment. Scott, what you just mentioned recently reminds me of a good book that I read. It's called The Energy Bus by a guy by the name of John Gordon. And in that book, John talks about each one of us who are bus drivers, like you are, Greg has been, Diane, all of us. We're responsible for who we let on our bus. And there are really two types of people, people that exude energy, and people that Gordon calls energy vampires. They literally just suck the energy out of us. And so you bring up a great point about surrounding yourself with people that really give you energy. And you kind of have to watch out for those energy vampires that really take the life out of you. Kind of wondering maybe if in your experience, if maybe you and Greg in your partnership have given each other energy, which is what has really allowed your partnership to last as long as it has?
Obviously, yes. Greg and I have been in business together for, almost 20 years now.
20 years.
Yeah. Greg is a big picture man. I am as well. I do find myself in the weeds a little more than he does, but yeah, we both feed off of one another. He has obviously certain aspects about his character that help me balance out things that are lacking on my side and vice versa. Mm-hmm. But we're both positive-minded people who see, obviously issues in our industry, issues for our clients. The nature of our business is solving problems. And you can't be a problem solver with a continuous negative mindset. And so, yeah, we constantly help feed one another that positive energy. You have to have that in a partnership.
Yes, it does.
I hope that helps answer the question.
Yeah, it does. And Greg, I know you and I have chatted, some partnerships work great, but mm-hmm. some partnerships, for one reason or another, just don't work well at all. So could you maybe share a little bit with our listening audience that if you're in a partnership, choose your partner wisely, and maybe what you looked for when you were thinking about bringing Scott on?
Yeah, without a doubt, probably one of the most important things if you're in a business and you're seeking a partner or seeking a person who can walk beside you and make you a better employer and better employee, whatever that may be. I think the first thing that I always tell people that when I consult with them sometimes about starting a business is number one, seek wise counsel. Now, I will say, Bill, and I'm being funny a little bit here, I've always said I'm not the smartest guy there on the block, but what I have done is surrounded myself with extremely wise people, people that are willing to give good counsel. And when I seek out those people who are willing to give good counsel, I usually look at their attributes and see, if they're successful, especially in the arena that I'm wanting to get advice from. So I think one is to seek wise counsel, but also, I'll give you and Diane kudos there. I would encourage all, especially new business owners, to get a mentor, whether that be a business mentor or a spiritual mentor, whatever it is that they're seeking to grow in. I think it's extremely important. I've been blessed to surround myself by a great group of guys and ladies who in my life that in the various businesses that I'm involved in, I've always seeked out partnerships with people that are not necessarily like-minded. I don't want that to be, that they think like me, Scott, by no stretch of the imagination, thinks like me, but we have the same heart. We have the same desires to see our company grow and to be successful. So I would say, if you're looking to bring on a partner, this thing between me and Scott has been, as Scott echoed, 18 to 20 year relationship here of building trust with one another. And when we made a decision, or we made this partnership official about at the end of 2020, it was probably, honestly, it was one of the best moves I've made in the last 30 years to bring on him as my partner. So I would say pick a partner wisely and make sure that you're like-minded. I have other partnerships in other companies, and you know what? They're all good, godly men who have the same passion and desire to not only grow our company from a profitability standpoint, but also grow our people, our character, and who we are as a company. And number one, want to take care of the customers and the clients that we take care of. So again, I guess to wrap this up with a bow is pick a partner that it is a marriage. And so make sure that you picked wisely. And I've been blessed to have picked Scott and had a relationship, business relationship for the last 20 years. And I'm excited to see what he's going to take it to for the next 20 years.
Yeah, Bill, I would say you have to have common core values, those non-negotiables between the two of you that should everything fall apart, that those things will never be compromised.
That's right.
Those are the biggest things for me.
Yeah, all great points. Thanks to both of you. So we're talking this morning with Greg Herring and Scott Autry of Darnel Inc. Darnel helps their banking clients reduce charge-offs, protect client relationships, and reduce heavy HR costs. And Darnel has been restoring community trust between banks and their clients for over 45 years now. Scott, in your new role as CEO, you've shared with me in the past that your employment's not just a job, it's a calling. So how do you approach your accountability as a person of faith?
Sure. Well, when you view your job as a calling, it begs the question, who called you to it? And as a Christian, I firmly believe that from God and to God and through God are all things. In Him we live and move and have our being. So I'm not ashamed to say that. That means life is not arbitrary, nor is my calling in my employment. It's not a mundane task. It's given to me by God Himself. Mm-hmm. I thought, as you were asking the question, one of the wisest men who ever lived struggled with this question. It was the question of the mundane and the day to day, and how somebody could wake up every day and go to work day in and day out, and only to see the fruit of his labor pass on to the next person. He used a word there in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. He used the word, it seems like vanity. But he came to this conclusion. It made him depressed until he recognized that his calling was from God, that job, that task, his purpose in life was given to him by God Himself. So when you're the leader of a company, you're not held accountable to anyone else, really. You have to have that recognition that there's someone higher than you. And at the end of the day, you're going to turn that back into Him, to the one who gave it to you, and hopefully you'll leave it better than you found it. So as a person of faith, you have to know who called you to that task and why He called you to it.
Yeah, such great words. So in case we have any banks and bankers who might be listening, what is the best way, Scott, to get in touch with Darnel?
Yeah, so like your previous guests, we're on LinkedIn, Greg Herring, Scott Autry. URL is darnelrecovery.com, DARNEL recovery.com. You can find us there. We're, again, obviously all over LinkedIn. And you can reach out to us that way.
Great. Well, Scott and Greg, thank you so much for coming on Profit Sense today. And my big takeaways are, obviously, Greg, you mentioned don't be afraid to try, launch out into some deep waters. Gave some great words about partnerships. Scott, you shared a little bit about the man in the arena with Teddy Roosevelt, and also shared a little bit about your calling as a new CEO. So great words from both of you. Thanks so much for coming on Profit Sense today.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
So in closing, if you want to keep up with the latest in pro business news, follow us on social media for the latest stories. If you want to listen to future Profit Sense podcasts, you can find us on ProfitSenseRadio.com. This is Profit Sense with Bill McDermott signing off. Make it a great day.